because the lady that I spoke to, her grandfather was a slave. Let me repeat this again. Her grandfather was born a slave. Good morning, good afternoon from Veracruz. Today we are going to the fort of Veracruz, San Juan De Ulua. I think it's gonna be a pretty good day. It is already super hot. I'm sweating buckets. So let's get going and see you guys on the road. I know these guys. I've been here before. So let's see what they say. Let's see what they want. Aquí es normal. Okay. ¿Y cuánto es? 30 pesitos. Okay.
Ya la otra empezamos a las 5.
Okay. Okay, a regresar en 2 horas. Gracias. Some say Jalisco is Mexico, which indeed it is because of its culture, food, and many things that's associated with Mexico comes from Jalisco. Okay, the other thing is Mexico City, state of Mexico, is Mexico. Sure, that is the capital of Mexico. That is where the country gets its name, from Mexico City. Fine, but I'm coming here to say Veracruz is Mexico. Welcome to San Juan De Ulua. This right here is the first place in North America conquered by Europe. This is the beginning, this is the start of modern North America, of the modern world. While searching for gold, Hernan Cortez found the city in 1519. It's 503 years old. This is the oldest city in all of North America. This is where Mexico began. So here's the question for you guys. Is Tijuana closer to Juneau, Alaska, or to Cancun? The correct answer is Juneau, Alaska. This is how large Mexico is. How impressive is Mexico? Mexico is one of 5 countries in the world to rank top 15 in landmass, population, and GDP per capita. So, do you guys see these beautiful calm waters, this productive port? Well, this place has a very interesting history. About 100 years ago or so, or a little bit more than 100 years ago, they used to have prisoners here. And these are mostly politicians and people that the government was maybe scared of. And to make sure no one runs away, they would have sharks, a lot of sharks in this area, to make sure that if they do run away and if they do try to escape, well, they're gonna go night-night. So Mexico got its independence in 1821, but the Spanish forces and the Spanish conquistadors remained until 1825. So my question to Mexico is, when should the Independence Day be celebrated? Should it be celebrated in 1825 or should it be celebrated in 1821? Because the Spanish still conquered and controlled this area here. There's a lot of significant and important history that has happened here. Not only is it where Hernan Cortez came, but this is where the United States entered in 1846, 1848, Mexican-American War, to basically force Mexico into giving up half of its territory. Gracias. Gracias. So this right here is TEMSA, and TEMSA is probably the biggest company in Veracruz that employs, I don't know if it employs the most people, but it's the biggest company. And what they do is they make steel pipes for the oil fields, but also for like bridges and just other types of construction. But most of its biggest customer is going to be the state-owned oil company Pemex. So in Mexico, is this very normal, like to help the needy and like beggars on the street, whatever they're doing, if they're painting the topes, which are the speed bumps, like whatever, if they have a rope, Mexican people are just like, you know what, let's just pay or let's help. I think to them it's just like, hey, let's keep the peace. So today we are going to those mountains and beyond. It's gonna be a very, very twisty day. So it's gonna be interesting to see what we see on the road. You know, something I noticed about Mexico is that they really have a lot of gas stations. So everywhere you go in Mexico, you'll see like Pemex gas stations, and there was a few back there, but I guess for like the local community that does live here, it's like, hey, let's get them, let's make sure they got some fuel. So guys, I want you guys to remember this river here. This is called Rio Blanco. Everywhere you go, Mexico has a small town. And here's a small little town here. I'm not even sure if I was supposed to come this way, but they got some like type of activity for the children. You got the great Mexican flag here. So just like that, the terrain has changed so quickly. The type of trees, the vegetation, even probably like what's grown here has changed so quickly. Wow, just look at how lush this is. If anybody's ever coming to Mexico on a motorcycle trip, this is a very worthwhile road. I mean, the steep, it is so steep. I don't even know like what the grade is. 15%? I'm not even sure, but sometimes you have to slow down because of the curve, and you might be going might have to shift down to even first gear. But the good thing is that it's paved. But the ascent, it just goes so fast. What, people live here? There's a church or something, right? Some gathering? Wow. So I don't know the elevation of Cordoba from last night, but we are already at 4,000 feet right here. And what's 4,000 feet? Is this gonna be a theme in this channel? It's like 1,000 something meters. To all the meter folks. I'm just joking. You got these ducks here. Hey, ducky, ducky, ducky. What are you doing? Ah, there's indigenous people that are living here. Usually in the mountains is where the indigenous live in Mexico. Not only in Mexico, but most of the Latin world. And they're dressed in their indigenous traditional attire. Just so you know that some of the clothing that the indigenous people wear, it's actually not indigenous, it's from the Spanish times. Don't even try to chase me. They got a nice little football field out here in these mountains. They got bus service in this area, right? That's pretty cool. You know what I noticed, that in a lot of these mountain towns, the dogs are very mellow. I don't know what's going on in Mexico, but I guess the dogs have some level of respect. And then you got a donkey here. You got all the forms of transportation, from the old to the new. Now, motorcycles. I'm wondering what it was like, 40 years ago or so. There's probably a lot more donkeys in this area. And I don't even know how long this road has been built, but it definitely improves the life here. They got satellite TV, so VTV here. All these homes have satellite TV, Let me see if they have internet connection or cell reception here. Maybe not. Nope, there is no cell reception. I'm not sure why this is paved, this one isn't. Maybe it just deteriorated over time. So the state of Veracruz has 7 cities with more than 100,000 people. The biggest of them is going to be Veracruz itself, the city of Veracruz. That is where the state began, that is where the country began, and it is the oldest town, of course, in all of North America. Then you're going to have Jalapa, which is the capital, followed by Coatzacoalcos, which is funny, it's on the coast. Then you're going to have Costa Rica, Minatitlan, and then also Cordoba and Orizaba are also really big or good-sized towns. So it is, you know, today you have development here, stores and civilization, but imagine during the time of Yanga, it was just nothing but mountains here. So it is from this town, Zone Holica, all the way to Cordoba and Yanga and all the surrounding areas where the Maroons, the former African slaves, were fighting the Spanish. So today, of course, this is a indigenous town. Everybody basically seems to be indigenous or mestizo of some sort. But yeah, this was the area right there, Zone Holica, and this is the town square here. Now, where's the church? I know they have a church somewhere. Right there. So Veracruz is the 4th most populous state in Mexico. The only states bigger are Mexico City itself, the state of Mexico, and Jalisco. And back in the 2010 census, Veracruz was actually more populous than Jalisco, but I guess Jalisco's growing at a faster rate than Veracruz. To put 8 million people in perspective, Veracruz would be one of the most populous states in the US, 8 million people. So it's actually bigger than 37. Oh, they're looking at me like, this guy is so dumb. So yeah, the map, the GPS has us going up, but up is only one way. So you got these, what is this, middle-aged students coming out of school, or maybe high school. Yeah, I think these are high school students. Okay, yeah, we are now back on track. Yep, we're back on track now. So I don't know the elevation of Cordoba this morning, but we are already at 8,000 feet, or maybe like 2,500 meters. So the ascent is just so fast. You can go from sea level. This is what I was talking about. You can go from sea level to 18,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 8,000 feet within a very short amount of time. So we got this off-road section here. It's pretty rocky, but I'm sure like sedans are gonna go up this, you know. I already see, I've seen some pickup trucks, but I'm sure sedans are gonna attempt this. You know, visiting places like this in Mexico would actually be pretty difficult without a good 4x4 vehicle or a good dual sport motorcycle. So the elevation is what really has a main impact on the temperatures in Veracruz. So here we are, maybe 70 degrees or so, 65, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Perhaps, 20 degrees Celsius, 19 degrees Celsius. And the reason for that is because we're high in elevation, about 8,000 feet. And once you go down to sea level, you're gonna get humid temperatures. So just alone in Veracruz, you have in Pico de Orizaba, the mountain range, it's basically has snow all year round. Then you get to the coast where it's like very humid. So Veracruz has like many different temperature ranges, and those temperature ranges grow different kind of foods. So, All right, so do you guys see these goats here? Mexico is a very big consumer of goat. They also keep a lot of goat, a lot of sheeps. It's part of the diet in Mexico. So what's interesting is that in the U.S., a lot of the meat that's consumed by at least the Muslim population is actually not from the U.S. or Mexico, because their goats tend to be a little bit fatter. But these goats don't seem, they seem to be pretty lean. I don't know if that one is pregnant there, but those are sheeps over there. These are goats. And yeah, this is part of Mexico's diet. There's some really good birria that has goat. There's also like goat tacos and things like that. It's pretty delicious. So this family's like keeping donkeys and things like that. So when it comes to wildlife, Veracruz is gonna have 102 different types of mammals, 49 amphibians, 102 different species of reptiles, 561 species of birds. And the endangered animals is basically gonna be the jaguar. It's surprising that I didn't know they had jaguar in Veracruz. So you got the jaguar, the spider monkey, and the anteater. I hope I said it right. Those are gonna be the endangered species. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about the Olmecs, and yes, the Olmecs are from Veracruz. They're from the southern portion of Veracruz. You also have a lot of other tribes that existed before the Spanish came and that still exist to this day. So those are going to be the Huatecs, Otomes, and the what are they called? Totonacs. Yep, most of the vehicles on these roads are going to be 4x4s. For hundreds and hundreds of years, the port of Veracruz was the most important. So when the Spanish came 500 years ago, they basically exported silver and red dye. I don't know what was so special about red dye, but I could imagine Europe's industrial age and its infatuation with textile. I'm sure red dye could have been important. So those were the two most exported things. Now, what did the Spanish import? So they basically imported all these dogs you see, cows, goats, horses. They are basically from Spain. This is a neat little town. So you can see like even the type of trees has basically changed. So now you basically have like these evergreen, kind of like, what can I say, like pine trees. Oh, it is getting windy. Before the Spanish arrived in what is now known as Mexico, they were in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, which is the oldest town in the Americas. Also Cuba. And so from the Caribbean, they basically brought African slaves to this land of, Veracruz. We've seen a lot of sugar canes. They basically brought sugar cane, pineapples, and slaves from the Caribbean. With Veracruz being the first place the Spanish arrived on the North American continent and Mexico, this is where the word mestizo begins. This is the origin of mestizos. So the word mestizo is basically a mixture of Spanish and indigenous blood. So when the Spanish men came from Spain, when the conquistadors came, they raped the local women, the indigenous women, and that is how you have the mixture result. The dominant Mexican group today is the mestizo. They are the biggest, they're the majority in the country. You have, maybe like I said, maybe 16, 17, 18% is going to be indigenous. Then you're going to have your group that classifies themselves as white. But the majority of Mexican and Mexican identity is based on them being mixed from Europe and the native people of Americas. From the beginning of Hernan Cortez in the early 1500s, all the way until the end of slavery in the early 1800s, you basically have an estimated 500,000 to 1 million people that came through the port of Veracruz. So today's black Veracruz population is significantly diminished. If you have not seen the last video, take a look at that. I was fortunate enough and blessed to talk to a black Veracruz family. So, I mean, slavery is really not that long ago.
in Mexico and all of the Americas, really, because the lady that I spoke to, her grandfather was a slave. Let me repeat this again. Her grandfather was born a slave. So if you have not seen that video, please take a look. Just take a look at how cool this is. Wow, wow, wow. Now for sure we are definitely descending. Oaxaca, Puebla, here we come. I haven't seen Puebla in a while. I haven't seen Oaxaca in a while. So tonight, that's where we're gonna sleep. In about an hour or so, we're gonna get fuel. Things have been really good today. The weather has been outstanding. As we decrease in elevation, of course we're gonna get a little bit warmer, but that is fine. It is not like it's 35 degrees or 40 degrees or anything like that. So it is beautiful, beautiful, easy going day. And yeah, this is to the route to Tehuacan, a place where we have been before. So going the other way is Tehuacan. This way we're gonna go to Oaxaca. I see that the temperature has definitely increased from all the way on, coming from all the way top. So going this way is Oaxaca, going back is Tehuacan. So Tehuacan is Puebla. This is the state of Oaxaca, this direction. And you can see like the amount of vegetation, is this different? The vegetation is different. The climate is a lot more warm. Once you're back up there, that's kind of like the borderline between a green environment and more so like I would say like a dry environment, a more dry cactus type of environment. So this is like where we see like the first glimpses of cactus. So should we also talk about the Tampico Affair that took place in Veracruz, in the port of Veracruz? Oh wow. So let me pass this thing first. So the Tampico Affair is actually a historically significant moment, not only for the United States, but also for Mexico and all of the world actually. So the Tampico Affair was in the early 1900s, where the United States and United States people, United States companies are the owners of these oil fields in Veracruz. So to protect like U.S. interest, the U.S., not the U.S. Navy, but there's just a lot of U.S. traffic in the area. U.S. people, U.S. Sailors that are in the area. So the story is that some U.S. sailors trying to get some fuel because they ran out from the Mexicans were arrested. And the reason for this was a miscommunication. One did not speak Spanish and the other did not speak English. So this incident was, of course, reported to the American, I would say like military officials or generals or just U.S. personnel. And it was a mistake. The Mexicans made a mistake. They should not have arrested these people. They were sailors and they were just trying to get some fuel. So it could have been hours, it could have been some days, but in the end they were let go. So the Americans were like, hey, you have to not only punish the person who did this severely, you have to apologize verbally, and then you also have to apologize with the 21, what they call it, the 21 gun salute. So the gun is actually not like actual gun or anything like that, but I believe it's like saluting the U.S. flag with 21 shots of cannons. That's how I assume and think it is. But the Mexicans is like, hey, we're sorry, we apologize. The person who did this mistake will definitely be punished. But enough with the 21 salute stuff. So this situation got, not only out of hand, but it went to the ambassadors of the country. It went all the way to Mexico City, and it went all the way to President Huerta. Look at these people. Nope, you're too young. They're too young to be given money. Yeah, I really don't like them standing on the road. So one of the key figures in the story is Nelson O'Shaughnessy. He's the ultimate Karen, the ultimate liar, the ultimate Karen. So check this out. So to the Associated Press, to the media, he reports that the Mexicans indeed stopped some Marines. They were just regular sailors. And he said they paraded on the streets by stopping them and putting them in jail, which they did not do. So this caused the president, Woodrow Wilson at the time, to basically ask the Senate and to go to war. So before this happens, the Mexicans are like, hey, we apologized and we're not gonna apologize any further. The person is reprimanded and we're sorry for what happened. But all the other, respecting the flag and things like that, and the 21 gun salute, like enough with all that. So later, I guess they didn't know it was gonna be this serious and go all the way to the president of the US. And they're like, okay, fine, we'll do it. But at the time of Woodrow Wilson, he's like, you know what? I don't care if they apologize. I don't care if they agree. We're just gonna go. So one of the questions I have is this thing called checks and balances. So Woodrow Wilson goes to Senate and Senate approve it. But what happened? Some US personnel, US people were stopped, and in a few hours or in a short amount of time, they were like, oh, hey, sorry, it was a mistake. We're not gonna do this again. But instead they decide to go to war. So if one person wants to go to war in the United States, the president, they will go to war. So my question is, how are the actions of Wilson different than the actions of Vladimir Putin? Is that because the United States is, still winning and the superpower of the world, and Russia not so much? Is this the question I have? Is it just me, or does Oaxaca have the most speed bumps? Every little 100 meters is like a speed bump. So the US military, Navy, Marines, they all come to the port of Veracruz. They quickly invade and get a hold of the port. Some Americans die, some Mexicans die. And the interesting thing about the story is that for about, 7 months or so, the Americans were in Veracruz. And the story gets very interesting because after the Americans left, this is when the telegram was a very big and important way of communication. So the Germans send the Mexicans a telegram that says, hey, we can help you defeat the Americans. And not only that, the land that you lost in the 1840s, we can help you get back all your northern territory. So this is 1917, World War I time. And the British intercept the telegram that the Germans sent to Mexico saying that they will get, their land back and, defeat the Americans and all this stuff. And the Americans are like, oh my goodness, this is what Germany wants to do and assist Mexico with. They're like, all right, let's go to war. And at the time, you have to know that America was not involved or did not want to get itself involved in any of the European problems, European wars. They're like, nope, we're gonna be in this part of the world and just building. So that is the reason the US got involved in World War I. That is the reason Mexico did not participate in World War I, because they did not want to support the United States. And I guess it was just difficult for them to partake in supporting the Japanese and the Germans. But one thing they did do for the Germans is that German interests and German businesses in Mexico were allowed to operate freely. We have 108 kilometers to our destination, and this road is not as windy, so we should be able to make good time. Hopefully about an hour and a half or so. That will get us to about 6. Wait, what time would that be? Wow, it'd be 6:40. So the sun will basically set by the time we get there. So let's just keep on pushing. So let's talk about the economy of Veracruz. So ever since the Hernan Cortez times, and even before that with the indigenous people and perhaps even the Olmecs, the economy was really based on agriculture, forestry, and fishing. And more recently, in the last 100 years, with the advent of petroleum and the new discovered oil fields, it's basically oil. When it comes to agriculture, the main crops that are grown are going to be vanilla, coconut, bananas. You're also going to have coffee, tobacco, of course, the sugarcane that we have seen, pineapple. But for a lot of the farmers and for a lot of the poorer and local people, it's of course going to be corn and beans. I think we're gonna be riding in the dark for a little bit today. It was just a long day. It wasn't that it was a lot of kilometers, but going through those mountain passes, it just takes time. In those small towns, and you know, stopping, getting on the drone. So it's gonna be pretty good because I don't think there's gonna be a lot of traffic. I think it's gonna be a main road anyways. So let's hurry up. It's 6:11 already. So yeah, we're definitely going to be riding in the dark. But that is okay because we have a super beautiful sunset, gorgeous mountains here in Oaxaca. So Veracruz was gorgeous, Puebla is gorgeous, Oaxaca is gorgeous. I mean, what state in Mexico can we really say is like straight up ugly? I know like some parts of Tamaulipas is not the most beautiful, but even Tamaulipas is gifted. The southern part of Tamaulipas is gifted with waterfalls upon waterfalls, lush green mountains, twisty roads, perhaps like the border towns. Some of those places might be desert-like, but I can't think of like one ugly Mexican state. So within Mexico, Veracruz is the largest producer of rice, of corn, sugarcane, and coffee. So when it comes to livestock, Veracruz again is one of the biggest players in Mexico. So of course it's going to produce a lot of pigs. Today we've seen a lot of goats, cows, horses, turkey. So when it comes to forestry, Veracruz is one of the most forested states within Mexico. So of course it's going to be a big producer of rubber and hardwood, just wood in general. So anytime you consume oysters or shrimp or sea bass or red snapper, it's probably going to be from the state of Veracruz if you're consuming it within Mexico. So Mexico has 31 states plus the capital city of Mexico City, and Veracruz alone, it accounts for about, like I said, 3% of the landmass in Mexico. But when it comes to water, it accounts for 30% of Mexico's water supply. So it's a state rich in water. It's going to be rich in gold, silver, iron. Of course, other states probably produce a significant amount more, but Veracruz also produces non-metallic metals. So some of those non-metallic minerals are going to be feldspar, calcium, silica, and let's talk about probably the most important of Veracruz's economy and one of Mexico's biggest contributors, which is oil, petroleum, oil products. So Veracruz basically has about 1/4 of Mexico's oil reserves and is the third largest producing oil state. I don't know which states produce more, maybe Tamaulipas, but Veracruz is definitely one of the top producing states. And yes, Veracruz does have the port. It is the third most important and productive port in Mexico, and for hundreds and hundreds of years, it was the port of Mexico. But with the rise of China, with the rise of Asia, the side of the Pacific has gained traction and produces exports and imports a whole lot more than Veracruz nowadays. But a lot of the things that's going to Europe, parts of the Gulf of the United States, Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, perhaps even like Florida, they are going to and coming from the port of Veracruz. Veracruz as a state has, you know, many ports, but of course the biggest one is going to be Veracruz, the one in the city. So within that, you have transportation. A lot of the goods that's coming and going from the center of the country, Puebla, Mexico City, is going through the port of Veracruz. So Veracruz is rich. Veracruz has a lot. It can perhaps be its own country. It actually has a bigger economy than a lot of countries, especially those in Latin America. So the question becomes, like, why are the people of Veracruz not rich? And to that, I would probably say there's a strong union. So a lot of the rich people that do have money in Veracruz, they really do not invest in Veracruz. They don't want to invest in Veracruz because they don't want to deal with the unions. That's what I've heard from some of the business people that do live in Veracruz itself. The other thing that they say is that the people are not as hardworking as that of the north. So there's just not a lot of industry. But my take on it is that, like, the northern states are going to be a lot more rich because its proximity to U.S. industry. Yes, it can be political things of why, you know, Veracruz is not producing as much as it should, or why the money is not being distributed within Veracruz or more evenly within Veracruz. But, you know, there's a lot of states that's doing worse. But I hope the best for Veracruz. They have good food, nice people, really nice people. I had a really good time, and it's, you know, like I said in one of the videos, some say Jalisco is Mexico, others say Mexico City is Mexico, but I'm here to say, like, yo, Veracruz is Mexico. So because it has a port, what does Veracruz export? Well, coffee, sugar, fresh fruits, fertilizer, shrimp, fish are some of the biggest exports for Veracruz. What does it import? I'm assuming oil equipment, oil technology, machinery, cars, of course. So the last thing, what has Veracruz given this world? And I can say vanilla. There's many things that Veracruz is important for and has contributed to not only Mexican society, but world society. But just to end this video, vanilla. It has given us vanilla. Anybody who's consumed ice cream, it's gonna be from Veracruz. Thank you for watching. See you guys in the next video. Please do me a favor, click on the like button, click on the subscribe button, share and comment down below.